We're lucky to work in an industry where exciting news on brand new cutting-edge ships are always on the horizon. These ships are designed to break the mould and push the boundaries of what a modern cruise ship can be. Racetracks, magic carpets and robotic bartenders all change the expectations we have when it comes to holidaying at sea. But does this come at an expense of the history and maritime traditions, something many guests enraptured by cruising's golden age still hold dear? On Wednesday the 1st of May 2024, a new royal was welcomed into Southampton for the first time. I was there, lucky enough to be one of the first few guests allowed on Queen Anne to experience everything she has to offer, from the dining venues to the public spaces and the accommodation, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about what I found made this ship so special. The first sight you're greeted with when you enter Queen Anne for the first time is the grand lobby. This is a stunning 3-storey space and is really the first hint of what Cunard have tried to do with Queen Anne, which is take all of the things people love about previous Cunard ships and that kind of tradition and maritime heritage and blended it with kind of a new modern luxury, which is probably more akin to what you'll have experienced on some of the newer ships released in the last few years. After leaving the grand lobby, what I really wanted to do was start exploring the ship, but first of all I had to check into my accommodation. In this instance, I'd been given a balcony stateroom on deck 11, so in a kind of forward position. My initial thoughts on the balcony stateroom was how much space there was. It was much more than I initially thought. You had everything in there, from the tea and coffee making facilities to toiletries in the bathroom, to a little writing area with mirrors, and there's plenty of storage space. I thought to myself, well, I'm only on here for a night, but I'd be more than happy to stay in this stateroom for the next 7 days, maybe even 2 weeks. Once unpacked and settled in, I made my way down the corridor and found myself overlooking the pavilion, which is the main pool deck area on Queen Anne. It has a retractable roof, so if the weather isn't too pleasant, that will be pulled over, as it was on this day, because unfortunately Southampton, as it often is, was very grey, wet and windy. With a huge cinema-sized screen at one end of the pool area and ample seating, one could only imagine what this would be like if you were in the Caribbean, the Canary Islands, somewhere where the sun is shining. As I continued my self-guided tour of Queen Anne, I found myself at the Grills Terrace, which is the area on the ship reserved for the Grill Suite guests, as you will also find on Queen Mary II, Queen Elizabeth and Queen Victoria. This is a really lovely space. There's comfortable lounges, it's quiet, and I would absolutely recommend researching the grill suites on Queen Anne if you're looking for a Cunard cruise with a little bit extra. Heading up to the top of the ship on deck 14, I found the Sky Bar. Now, unfortunately, the weather wasn't nice enough for this area to be opened, but once again, I'd imagine if you were in a destination where the sun is shining, this would be a great place to grab a drink and watch the world go by. Following a lap or two of the top deck, I headed down for some refreshments to the Golden Lion pub. Now, the Golden Lion pub is a fixture on Cunard ships, something I've heard a lot about. I've never been on a Cunard ship before this point before, so I was really excited to see what it was like. When I got in there, I was kind of surprised. I think I was expecting like a classic British pub. It's not really that. I would say it reminded me of a 4 or 5 star hotel bar in maybe Manhattan. But the atmosphere is great. It's really lively. They had some musicians playing Irish music, and I could happily have spent a few hours there, but unfortunately time was at a premium, so I had to move on. Heading further down into the ship, I found myself at the Maril Spa. Now, the Maril Spa is the ship's kind of spa and wellness facilities. There is another wellness studio at the top of the ship, but this was actually closed at the time we were on board. However, the spa itself is absolutely beautiful. I was given a guided tour of the hydrotherapy pool, some of the massage treatment rooms, the salon. There's even an acupuncture room. So it's safe to say, if you were on here for any length of time, this would definitely be the place to spend an afternoon or two. Fast forward a couple of hours and it was time to get ready for dinner. So I headed down to deck 2 where I had a table at the Brania Restaurant. Now, there are 9 different dining venues on Queen Anne, but I have to say I was extremely pleased that I've been allocated seating here. It's one of maybe the busiest dining areas on the ship, but that's not to say it lacks anything. The space is absolutely beautiful, much like a lot of Queen Anne. It's really kind of captured that kind of the romance of sea with some real nice modern touches. And I was really impressed with the food. So the menu was fantastic, but I ended up going with the Lyburn Old Winchester cheese and saffron arancini for starter, a lobster bisque, And then the grilled South Coast lemon sole fillets. Now, as you can probably tell, we were in Southampton, so that's quite a regionally influenced menu, which I really appreciated. All of the dishes I had were delicious. So, feeling suitably stuffed after dinner, I wanted to find out what Queen Anne offers to guests in the evening. And I think it's fair to say that the ship really does transform. There's so many lounges, there's loads of bars, so you can literally spend the evening just walking around, having a drink at each different place. And I think you could probably do that 3 or 4 times over and maybe not even end up in the same place on any 2 nights. However, if you're familiar with Cunard, you'll know that the Royal Court is kind of a staple of the Cunard experience, and it is the ship's main kind of theatre. So I wanted to get in there and check out, what it was like. I was really impressed with the size of it. It's quite expansive, but one of the great things is it doesn't matter where you sit, the sight lines are completely clear. Now, we saw a performance of Brief Encounter, the old British romantic drama, and the performers were excellent, easily of a level of anything I've seen kind of in the West End. They really are top draw. So you can tell that Cunard have put a lot of investment into making sure the entertainment on board is kind of really fantastic. With the show finished and the night still young, it was time to take a look around some of the lounges and bars on Cunard's Queen Anne. One thing I would say is that there is a lot to choose from. Each one's kind of different from the next, whether you're in the observation lounge to the chart room. They're all offer a kind of something different in terms of decor and atmosphere, and I reckon you could probably spend a good few days in here enjoying each venue and not necessarily having to go to the same one twice. One of the most interesting venues on Queen Anne is the Bright Light Society, which is unique to this ship, and it's kind of I don't really know how I describe it. It has a compere, there's different entertainment, it's kind of got a jazz club kind of vibe to it. Really interesting place to be in, and to be honest, I think if I was on Queen Anne and I was spending a bit of time on here, it's definitely a venue where I'd like to go at least a couple of times, just because it seems very different to anything I've experienced on a ship before. When Cunard first announced Queen Anne, they kind of done it under the tagline, the next in a fine line, and I really think they've absolutely achieved on that level. Even with such a brief stay, it was sufficient enough to appreciate the remarkable achievement that Cunard have pulled off here. I mean, from the interior decor to the thoughtful little touches, every aspect of the ship reflects a commitment to providing guests with luxury and comfort. But I think actually my overriding feeling, and the thing I'm most impressed with, is how they've managed to blend modernity and technical innovation without forsaking the air of romance that has defined Cunard for so long. It's almost like the past and the future have been seamlessly intertwined, offering an experience that is enchanting as it is impressive. If you've enjoyed watching this video and would like to find out more about Cunard, or would like to investigate the possibility of sailing on Queen Anne yourself, then definitely get in touch with our Voyage consultants on the number below. All of our team have got first-hand experience of sailing with Cunard, so are definitely best placed to recommend on everything from accommodation categories to dining options. Furthermore, if you've enjoyed this video, we'd greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to our channel, or if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and we'll get back to you. We'd also love to know exactly what ships you'd like to see featured on this channel in future. Thank you.